Welcome back to A Story to Tell from the campus of Dixie State University. Today we're talking to Susan Crook. Susan, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Lane.
Well, you look better than good.
Oh, yeah, you're always kidding.
Well, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you came from, where you live, what you do, who your family is.
Sure. I grew up in Heber City when Park City was almost a ghost town, didn't have any ski lifts, and most of the people in Heber City were farmers. So a little bit of change up there now.
Are you a farm girl?
Oh, yes.
Did you milk cows growing up?
You want to have a contest?
No.
Yes. We had just enough cows and enough acreage to raise 6 kids and keep us out of trouble.
So you have 5 siblings?
I do.
What are they doing?
Oh, they're scattered around. One's a retired fighter pilot, one of those annoying people. Sister in Vegas who's retired, and another sister in Provo, Springville area. Brother in Logan worked for Campbell Scientific. He started there when they started the company. They do the weather instruments all around the world. And another brother who's in computer stuff.
Stuff, that's a good term for it.
Yeah.
What about your parents? Are they still living?
Dad died about 3 days after we signed the contract with Boyer Company to sell the farm. Where the farmhouse was is now the Sportsman's Warehouse in Heber City. We think he was either relieved or brokenhearted or both. Mother's still living, she's in Heber City.
Well, that's nice. Sounds like you have a nice family.
Yes.
What are you doing now?
I work for Conserve Southwest Utah, the local conservation nonprofit. I'm retired from my landscape architectural practice.
You were a landscape architect?
I'm still a landscape architect. I'm still licensed and I do some consulting.
Can you come and tell me what's wrong with our lawn?
Yeah, I don't like to do that. I prefer to do historic preservation projects.
So you are retired from landscaping?
Well,
Oh, you were an architect, not a landscaper.
Landscaping, I did work in maintenance at Utah State. I actually became the head of the grounds department there before I left to start getting into landscape architecture.
You were the head of the grounds department at Utah State?
Utah State, yes.
My
Briefly.
brother-in-law was a professor there.
What was his name?
Gail Lindstrom.
Yeah, familiar name?
And I had a friend, John Cragen, who was in the business department there.
Yes.
It's surprising how all are sort of interwoven together.
Yes, there are a few people we're not connected with when we start talking.
Well, who are they? Let's get connected. Well, tell me exactly what you do.
Well, my official title is Land Program Manager and Suncliff Director, and Suncliff is sort of short for Southwest Utah National Conservation Lands Friends. So that the whole organization, Conserve Southwest Utah, sponsors the Friends group. The Conserve Southwest Utah is the 501c3 nonprofit, and our Suncliff group is the part where we have our volunteers and we work with BLM to help out on the land.
What's going to happen to the land?
Well, if we are good stewards, hopefully we will preserve it for future generations. Our public lands have been quite under a bit of controversy as far as how we manage them and use them. But we're working on, there are a lot of people interested in coming together and talking about our values and what we share as far as values. I have a lot of cousins who are still ranching out on the Arizona Strip.
Are they still speaking to you?
Sure. We had a great big cousins reunion last year, and 2,000 some odd Heaton family members got together out in Moccasin, Arizona, and Kanab, Utah, and Ardorville, and Alton. So yeah, we figure there are about 17,000 some odd of us Heaton cousins worldwide.
How many thousand?
About 17,000, just a small number, from the original one father and 2 wives.
Oh.
Polygamous.
I've heard of them.
Yeah.
What is the solution to everybody fighting over the lands?
Finding common values, because I think we all do care. That's why we're going to have a forum this fall, Southwest Utah Conservation Forum. We're bringing in David Jenkins, the president of Conservatives for Responsible Stewardship, a national organization, and we also have a commitment from the assistant dean of the College of Humanities at BYU, who has been doing a lot of talking about stewardship and caring. So we have some really good speakers. But the way we want to run this is to have the speakers at the start and finish, and then have roundtable discussions with people who may have differing views about public lands, and see what we can come together on.
When will that be?
Mid-September. We're trying to tie down the date, and we're looking for sponsors. So I've been meeting with a few people already, starting to figure out details. We're just underway getting that started, but George Handley from BYU and David Jenkins have both agreed that they can make it at that time.
And will it be held here in St. George?
Yes, and we're hoping it will be hosted here on campus. We're looking into that with some of the people involved in the academics here on campus, and be talking to the folks in conferences and institutes, continuing it about the logistics. We'd like to see it actually be an ongoing thing that would happen every year, to get together and talk about why we care about our public lands and conservation and the place that we call home.
So what are we doing wrong with the public lands?
I think we need to understand what it is that the public lands provide for us, and we can call that ecosystem services, technical term, or we can just say they provide watershed protection, they provide dust control with the biosoil crusts. There are a lot of things public lands do that we sometimes don't appreciate. We know we get out and recreate and enjoy them that way, but oftentimes we don't think about how that habitat we preserve for the creatures that live there actually benefits us as humans.
How does that benefit us?
Well, as I said, our watersheds here, we store a lot of water in sandstone. A lot of those springs are on our public lands that contribute to the aquifers and the aquifer recharge areas. Our surface water comes from our mountains and is then stored sometimes in underground aquifers like Sand Hollow, where we actually recharge the aquifer to store the water and put the water on top, just sort of a icing on the cake to keep it all from evaporating and going away.
Can you water ski out there?
I believe I've seen a few people doing that.
Talked to a guy the other day, and they were kayaking on it, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm too old for that.
Me too.
Too old for water skiing. What else am I too? And never mind. Are we going to face a water shortage here?
Well, we already do. We live in a desert.
So what should we be doing about that?
Well, conservation is a good thing. Water's free. Falls out of the sky. It's the delivery of water that's expensive. So there's an awful lot that we can do. For example, I'm on my HOA board, and what we're finding—
You're on an HOA board?
Yep, my homeowners association.
I know what that means.
Yeah. So here's what's happening with our water. We have little lawns. Some of them are on steep slopes. Water runs off. We have a lot of springs and groundwater. And so all of our walls are being eaten away by the sulfates that are pulled up into the concrete block walls and the siltstone. If we stopped watering our lawns so much, we wouldn't have so much trouble with.
Are they agreeing with that?
Who is they?
The HOA.
Oh, I think a lot of our members would like to not have lawns. Some of our members love their lawns. But there's certainly a lot of things we can do as a community, not just individuals, but as a community, that we can do to conserve water. We haven't even started on that side of it.
Should we be looking at the population growth?
Certainly that's a factor, but I'd rather look at it from the point of view as a landscape architect in my training, to say, first let's look at the land. Because the thing I learned from people before there was GIS, who were figuring out how you use GIS before there ever was GIS. where you do overlay analysis of land use suitability for development. So you take a layer and you say, you take a piece of transparent drafting film and you say, here is where all the bedrock is. And you put another sheet and you say, here is where you have all of the slopes that are too steep to build on. Another sheet. Here are all the places where we have rockfall hazards. Here are the places we already have infrastructure in place. Here are the wildlife corridors. So you build up all those layers. That's what we call GIS today. But we did that on sort of plastic overlays with different shades of gray over time. But that was what I learned. First, look at the suitability of the land to support development. Look at where you can feasibly and least expensively develop, and then talk about how much land you can actually use, how much is available for development. We've kind of we've done a user preference survey that we called Vision Dixie with some underlying assumptions for the gaming we did there. But we didn't talk to the people up front about what are the things we have assumed underneath this. Did we actually map all the hazard areas, the places with expansive soils? Did we look at the places that are inappropriate to develop and map those, even though we know that some of those landowners will say, but it's my land, I can develop. But you have to say, at what cost?
Why do we make such a big deal out of saving the grouse or whatever it is?
Oh, sage grouse?
Yeah.
I think because sage grouse tell us a lot about habitat, because I don't know if this is true because I'm not a biologist, but perhaps they're an indicator species that tell us how healthy our environment is. Again, I'm not an expert on the sage grouse.
What about the turtles?
Tortoise are an indicator.
Or tortoise, I'm sorry. When I was a little kid, we called them turtles.
I'm wearing my green sea turtle earrings. So yes, but cousins. Our tortoise are also indicator species of the health of our ecosystem here. So preserving their habitat and the other creatures that live with them is a useful thing to us. Again, preserving that habitat gives us opportunity.
You and I had a little conversation at the BLM, the brown bag lunch the other day when you gave the presentation about the Bundys. I don't think people understand all the ins and outs of that. Can you background us a little bit on it?
My understanding, I haven't met, and at least I don't think I've met any of the members of the Bundy family themselves. I have had a brother-in-law who grew up over in that area, and I'm sure he knew some of them. But when the desert tortoise, the Mojave Desert tortoise, was listed as a threatened species, the state of Nevada determined that, or the BLM in Nevada, determined that they would retire the grazing rights of the ranchers who were running cattle in tortoise habitat. The Bundys refused to comply and left their cattle out there on the land.
How long ago was this?
It's about 20 years or so.
What was the authority they used to retire the grazing rights?
Well, it was the fact that there was tortoise habitat. They decided that was more important. Look, if we really want to raise cattle, there are better places to do it than here in the desert. How many acres does it make to create a cow acre, enough fodder to graze one cow? When the settlers came here, the Mormon colonists that settled in the area, they were subsistence living. They were just trying to survive. Of course, there was opportunity to sell cattle to the army and other people, so there was a market. But anymore, it's a tough thing to do. Desert environment, not good fodder. We have a lot of invasive plants in there, so it isn't the best place to raise cattle.
When I was a little kid trying to grow up, I've never grown up, but through high school we had cattle. And before I was born, the family had grazing rights in southern Nevada.
Yeah.
So I know a little bit about it, but we fed the cows in the feed yard through the winter and then ran them in the fields down south of the town. So we really weren't involved when I was young in the range type thing.
Yeah.
But I had heard about it and so forth. I have pictures. But I guess people get attached to things, and did they just rescind the rights, or did they buy them out, or did they offer to pay for them, or what was the deal?
I wasn't involved. I don't know the history. I just know that they were retired in whatever manner.
Retired, so that's the word.
That's the word that I have heard. I don't know what that means because I wasn't involved. I haven't ever worked for BLM.
Retired, that, you know, that reminds me of the coach that had a lifetime contract to coach at the school, and the Board of Regents called him in, pronounced him dead, and fired him. But that's irrelevant, I guess. What do you want the public to know and do about what you're doing?
I want people to go out on the public lands, be quiet, put away your phones, put away your cameras, sit there and observe.
So we're going to leave all the children home, huh?
No, they have
with their cameras?
They need to all leave those things
Yes.
home. Let's go out as families and have a quiet 5, 10 minutes, half an hour, and just be there in the moment. When I was a student here about 100 years ago at Dixie College at the time.
You went to school here?
I did.
100 years ago?
It was a long time. Pansy Hardy was teaching, and we had an exercise where we went and sat out on campus and did the Field of Experience paper, and you just were quiet and pretended nobody could see you. You just sat there and observed and wrote everything you sensed with all of your senses. And that's what people need to do. Go out on the public lands, sit out there, listen to the sounds, smell the air, feel the temperature, hear what's going on. Just be in that moment and appreciate it.
And leave your devices at home.
Yeah, tune out all that other stuff and tune in nature. It's amazing what that does.
Do you still ride horses and go camping?
I wish I could ride horses. I haven't ridden since I was a kid. But yes, I do love to get out on the land, go hiking, go camping.
Where's your favorite trail?
Well, I have to say one of my favorites is in my own backyard. I live in Paradise Canyon, so I'm right next to the Chuckwalla and the Paradise Rim complex of trails.
Paradise Canyon, where is that?
It's at the intersection of State Road 18, the marathon route, and the Snow Canyon Parkway. And we're just north of Snow Canyon Parkway. Right there is prime tortoise habitat. I have some friends.
You have some pets? Tortoises?
They don't climb over the fence typically, but we get lots of bunnies, and a little bobcat came walking through our yard one day, foxes. We hear the coyotes. So yeah, I like that area. I sit in my backyard and look at the sunset and the sunrise over Turtle Wall. It's a beautiful, beautiful place.
Turtle Wall, that's a clever name.
That's one of the rock formations. I wonder how they got that.
Are there a lot of turtles out there?
Yes, the area where I live is prime tortoise habitat. The subdivision probably shouldn't have been built if we wanted to preserve the habitat. In fact, I went hiking last Easter weekend on Saturday with a group on T-Bone Trail, and we have been looking at the sign, the portal sign at the trailhead for T-Bone, and I pointed out that you don't often see the Gila monsters that are on the sign because they're shy and you know, they don't like being around people. We got walking back, and here was a Gila monster walking along the trail. We said, oh.
Did you plant it there?
They accused me, and then we saw a tortoise, and then we saw another tortoise, and then they really thought that I set the whole thing up.
Well, it was really nice of you to set it up for them.
I told them that one of our board members would have to pay more money to, you know, it cost a lot to pay those animals to be there, so they like to get paid for those photo ops. We need another donation to pay for that.
How many people in your homeowners association, or how many units in your homeowners association?
284.
That's good size.
Yeah.
How long have you been in it?
About 10 years, 10 or 11 years, I think, almost.
Is a homeowners association a good thing?
I think it can be. If you want to have people be responsible for the place where they live, it's like having a community council. If you're in a community, in a city where you're big enough that you have community councils, gives people an opportunity to be involved in the place where they live. I think it's about time we do that in St. George. We're getting so big and strung out, we need community councils.
You're on the board.
Of my
Do
HOA.
people complain to you?
Of course. Sometimes people could thank us.
You've been thanked?
We have.
How did that happen?
Former board president.
He was happy he was gone?
She.
Oh, she.
Yes, she was very happy she wasn't involved, but very supportive.
Are you on? You're not the president, are you?
No.
You going to run for president?
No, I would not like to do that. I'm plenty busy as it is.
Our homeowners association annual meeting is 6 o'clock tonight. Got any advice for me? Go there and listen and shut up?
Oh no, go there and speak your mind.
I did that once and they threw me out.
I can't believe that.
It's true.
No, board members need to hear from residents. That's important. We get a lot of productive comments from people, not just complaints. People do really want to be involved for the most part.
What type of complaints are mostly what you get?
Parking, people parked in the wrong place, noise, typical things like that. Sometimes they complain about their neighbors, you know.
Don't they like their neighbors?
Sometimes they don't like that people have leases, that they rent their properties out.
Well, so people can rent their properties to other people?
Long-term rentals.
Long-term.
Yeah.
What do you think about short-term rentals?
I think there are appropriate places for them, and there's a great need for them here in our tourism-oriented community.
What about in your HOA?
Not allowed. St. George City does not allow the short-term rentals either.
So you're in the city.
Yes.
Do you think they should be allowed in the city?
In the appropriate places.
Would a HOA be an appropriate place?
If the members agree to it. There are new developments going in that are geared just for those short-term rentals. And I think that's very smart of the communities to do that.
Well, that's a wise answer, I think. There are a lot of problems in HOAs. I didn't realize you were a HOA expert when I asked you to be on the show, but I have friends that are leaving town because the people in their HOA were not very nice to them.
That can be a real problem when personalities get in the way of policy and fair treatment. We try to be fair in the application of the rules.
What advice would you give to other HOA board members?
Listen to your members. Enforce the rules equally among everyone. Don't play favorites.
Well, that's asking a lot. That was rude of me, wasn't it?
But we're humans. When I worked as a planner, I used to tell people that came in with complaints, we humans can't live with each other and we can't live without each other. Therefore, we create a mediation sort of board, and we call that government. Civics, remedial civics, for people that were complaining about neighbors and bringing up, trying to use the law to punish neighbors that they didn't like the things that they were doing. So basically just saying, we change, people make the laws, people can change the laws, but do it in the right way, not by, throwing rotten eggs at your neighbor's house or
You knew about that?
Did you do that?
No.
Oh, okay, good.
But I heard about it.
Yeah.
Somebody was leaving nasty notes on these people's windshield.
Oh my.
And they actually weren't in violation of any regulations.
No.
And that's the sad part when they try to over-enforce the law.
Yes, there is a balance, and there does need to be some wisdom in how those things are. I used to use a test for myself when I worked at Utah State University and we were making budget decisions for our department, and I would say, how would I as a taxpayer feel about this expenditure? So that was my way, and I think that board members for HOAs need to think that same way. How would I as a member of this homeowners association feel about enforcing that rule or making a rule? How would that make me feel?
Well, that's a good approach to it. It's hard for people sometimes to get along with each other.
Yes, it is.
Well, we've got 3 minutes left. What's your final word on everything?
I just want to say thank you to people who serve in elected office. I was at the Transportation Executive Committee meeting today, and I observed some very good things happening there. I appreciate those elected officials, and I'm just going to name a name here. Dean Cox brought forth, our county commissioner, said let's focus on the issues and how we can resolve them instead of just fighting against each other. And he was talking specifically about the renewal of the Habitat Conservation Plan and the proposed highway going through the Red Cliffs Desert Reserve and Red Cliffs National Conservation Area. But he said, let's all come together and try to figure out how we can make things work. And I thought that was a very wise approach. I know it's difficult in elected office because people want to give you a bad time. So I appreciate those elected officials who really listen and try to work for the good of the people.
Well, there's a highway that's supposed to go through up there, but it hasn't been done yet.
There are a lot of discussions about that while they're renewing the Habitat Conservation Plan. We're trying to bring everyone together that needs to be involved.
Is it possible to do that?
I think they're going to do it. I don't know what the resolution will be, whether there will be a highway through Tortoise Habitat, around it, above it, but they're talking about all of the options and trying to find solutions. And that approach, what are the facts and what are solutions, let's look at everything, is a very smart way to govern.
Well, Susan, Crook is your last name. Has anybody made fun of that?
All the time.
All the time. So I'm not the first one that brought it up.
No, I say crook as in politician, or as in Nixon said he wasn't one.
Oh, you knew Nixon?
Not personally.
Well, thanks for being with us on A Story to Tell. This is Lane Ronno. Thank you for being with us on A Story to Tell from the campus of Dixie State University.